So in this video we are making these really nice flashing pieces, and we're also going to wire wrap them. Let's go. Right, we are back. So I've been having a little play around with the nail powders again, and I want to kind of get an emerald style but with our own twist. So it's going to be a flashy emerald, and then we're going to do a simple wire wrap to finish it off. As you've seen in most of my gemstone videos, you can do this with two-part, but I am just using UV resin to speed things up. So I'm just pouring my resin into my small mixing cup, and then we are going to use some green liquid dye. So this is one of the Let's Resin transparent or translucent liquid dyes. So I'm just going to add 3 drops of that and then thoroughly mix it in until it's streak free. And we can then just pour into the shapes that we like, and then we just cure them. So this part is optional. Many of you have seen me using this before. This is Vallejo Special Effects. It is a frost effect, as you can see. Frost effect paint, and we are just going to apply some to the back of our stones. Not too much. And as mentioned before, there's a couple of ways of getting different effects with this stuff. If you leave it be with a thin layer, it will grow like a frost effect. If you speed it up with a long neck lighter, it will create a different effect. Still frosty, but not like a snowflake. So I'm just going to speed it up now, just carefully. Not for too long because you could damage your mould. Once it's warm, just move it around to make sure it's evenly covered. If it puddles in an area, it could be a bit more difficult to get the reaction started. Sometimes it just takes a gentle tap. There it goes. That has reacted, and that will just spread across the surface now and form a really cool frost effect. And that stuff isn't available on Amazon, as many of you know. A lot of you have already purchased it. There are online stores. A lot of people in my previous videos have said that they can't find it, and it's definitely available in the US. It's available in quite a few places. Just have a look. And what this will do, you'll see when I demold it, it will give a really nice kind of cracked effect. And you can also add more just by adding a little bit more and repeating that process. And then with what's left in that pot with the green, I'm just pouring in some more just to seal in these crystals. But just make sure there's no wet areas left on. So we are just applying a very thin layer now. And again, this is optional. So a thin layer and then cure it. And a silicone tool would be better for this. Using the other one is going to scrape away those crystals. And with the heart that I've done down here, I'm not going to apply any of the flash powder or nail powder. Okay, so this is the green Aurora metallic nail powder. Again, the links are in the description. Many of you have already got this since the previous videos. And I'm just going to dust that over the back. But I'm not doing this heart, just to see what they look like at the end. And again, just seal them in with our final layer. I've made this green a little bit darker by accident, but it won't matter. And then we flip our mould and just give it a minute on the underside. So what I'm going to do now is, just in case my pieces are sticky, I'm just going to put them in a quick blast in some water under my UV light, if I can get them out the mould. Because you could have oxygen inhibition, and I will be doing a video on that separately very soon. But this will remove any stickiness depending on your brand and how much additive you've put into your piece. So there is our first piece demolded. See what that frost effect really does make that look like a natural stone. And I know emeralds don't have that flash, but it really does. Add our own little twist on it. And you could just keep yours green if you want a flawless emerald. And you can see what I mean. about the oxygen inhibition. There is the heart that we didn't add the flash to. Still looks really nice. And you can see or hear that stickiness has gone. And a small teardrop I'm actually going to put inside my bangle that Lucy over at Funky Posh made for me a while ago. And there it is. That is so cool. Before we see the last one, massive shout out to my channel members. Anyone who's bought me a coffee or a super thanks, it's very much appreciated. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button, it is free. All product links, everything I've used are in the description box below, along with some online stores that could have this in stock. And here is the last one. That is crazy. It's really, really pretty. Any sharp edges, this is a definite must have. Just run it around very carefully and just trim off. Mine's not very sharp now, but it just takes off that sharp edge. But look at that. So now I have to pick one, and I know what's going to happen. You're going to wish that I picked a different one because, well, I'm not doing that one because I'm wearing it. So I think it's a tricky shout, it's a tricky call, but I think I'm going to go with a small one. And I think I might go, I mean, if I was to wrap this normally, I would go in this orientation, but I think I'm going to change things up and go with that. Right, let's get ready to wrap. Before we do that quick, I mean, I want to show you this emerald here is £245. We've just made one for next to nothing. Okay, so only two wires I'm going to be using are 26 gauge round wire, 24 gauge half round wire. As I've mentioned in previous videos when I've done this, I'm not a professional. I really am winging this. And Oxana Crafts, she's a legend. So I've cut 3 lengths of 6.5 inches, and this is the 26 gauge round. And then I've just cut 3 inches of the half round. Now bear in mind, as I said, I don't do this all the time. It's not a regular hobby of mine. So there's going to be some excess wire left over. So I'm going to begin by finding roughly the middle of the 3 pieces of wire. Make sure it's flat down and the curved part is up. And I'm just going to wrap that a few times around this group of 3 wires. The wires are going to move, that's fine, we can sort that afterwards. I'm just going to do a few wraps around that grouping, and then we can just move those together with our fingernails, like so. So there you can see I've gone around 6 times, and we've got our tail ends. We want to snip these. This will be the inside of the frame. So we need to just snip those and then bend the small sections inwards. And there you will see those small tails that we can bend over. So they're going to be hidden inside that frame. My hands are so big for this. And then we can take our nylon pliers and just make sure everything is snug and tight. And there it is. So that is the beginning stage. If it's not quite centered, you can slide it along now whilst you still can. So now we need to begin to shape this for our piece. So I'm just using some pliers. I'm just going to create a bend in the middle, take the piece, begin to bend that around our piece, and make sure that the tip of the stone is sitting nicely in that frame. And to get the shaping, you can put it on a surface and just start to bend those wires around the piece. Sorry, my hands are so big. They're getting in the shot. But just begin to start shaping those wires, making sure that they're not twisting and they're staying in their proper grouping of 3, and just shape that around the piece. So once you have most of the shape, we can then begin to bend these groupings and just make sure that it's symmetrical so so that when we pull them all together, it's going to create a nice shape. Just like that. So this is the stage we are at. Don't worry if the wires aren't really snug together, but you can see that shape beginning to form quite nicely. So now we need to start making our bail and fastening these group of 6 wires together. So to make that easier, I am going to go with the tape just to hold things in place. So I've cut off about 5 inches of my half round, and now we just want to secure these 6 wires together. So we're just going to start with a few wraps around this grouping and just checking that they're square. This can be a bit fiddly, especially for me because I have such large hands. So there we have, I've done 3 wraps. I've left the tail end just sticking out a bit. We'll deal with that bit afterwards. So what I'm going to do now is take the 2 front wires and we just bend those front wires forward, leaving the other 4 at the back. We can bend those back slightly if we want. And now we're going to take our half round wire, making sure that it is definitely curved side up. Now this is where the half round wire can twist, so just be very, very careful it doesn't twist. So just bring that round the back of those 2 front wires, just very slowly, making sure that it stays the way it should be. If you need more room, just move those back 4 wires out of the way and just bring that down. Use your nail to push it just gently into place, and then we're just going to keep wrapping. One more wrap, and then what I find really handy is my dotting tool from my resin. I can just move the wires down into place sometimes if need be. And what we're going to do now is just pull that a little bit tighter, not too tight, and just make sure the wires are sitting where they should be. And then we just continue to keep that flat side down and just keep going around these 2 bail wires, and just every now and again just push them down, making sure they're snug. And you just go as long as you want your bail to be. Again, just pushing down, and we're just going to keep going up until I get the bail length that I want. What you could also do is use your nylon pliers to hold those wires flat and wrap around, whatever's easiest for you. So I've come up about 1/2 inch, which I think is big enough. I don't want anything too overpowering. I've left that tail end at the back, which we can now just snip off. I think my flash has just come on. That's better. So we can just snip that halfway between the back 2 wires. If you're nervous or it's your first time doing it, snip more than what you think you should, because if you go too short, you've got to backtrack, unravel, and basically rectify it. And then with our nylon pliers, just push that down and secure it. So this is the piece so far. We've got the bail, don't worry about any kinks, and we've got those back 4 wires. Now with the tail end that we left down here, this is going to be going inside the frame and tucked in. So just make sure that it's tight to begin with, and then we can snip that again, leave room for that to go inside the frame. And I'm just using my dotting tool just to get it roughly in place. I can snip a bit more off of there, not too much. We don't want it to be too visible. And then bend that and tuck it inside the frame. And there we go. So that is tucked in. So this will be the front. You can't really see it. And that is the view so far. So now we're going to take our back 2 wires, leaving the middle 2 up there. We've got the front 2 for the bow. So the back 2, make sure you're checking down to ensure they are the back 2 wires. We're just going to bend those down the back like so, and we're just going to snip those and leave a short tail. Again, leave some length if you want to, any more can be trimmed off afterwards. And then we're just going to bend those towards the back frame a bit more, bend them inwards. We can trim off some more. And then really bring those down towards, so they're not going to catch anything. They're going to be covered up in a moment anyway. And just like that, so you can see them curved in quite nicely. There's some marks on there, you know, again, I'm quite new to this. And then we take our middle 2 wires that are left. I am following Oxana's video. I will put the link in the description box below. Take the stone out for this part. That's better. So we're going to take those through the frame out towards what will be the front. Make sure they're on their right sides, like so. And then I'm just going to, sorry about the wobble, just going to push those wires over the back of those first 2, just to cover them and protect them a little bit more, like that. So now what we need to do is finish these 2 wires off. So we don't want them to interfere with the stone inside the frame. So I'm just bringing them up a little bit higher. Just making sure that they're kind of matching. And then we can bring those to the back. Like so. So what we need to do now is just snip those 2 wires. This is where it's gone wrong for me in the past, because I didn't leave enough. I didn't leave enough wire to tuck back inside the frame last time I tried this. So I'm going to snip more than what I need. Like so. So basically we need to bend these and tuck them back on themselves inside this wire, about halfway again in the middle, so that we're not going to be able to see them from the front. So this part is where I'm quite nervous. So I am just going to snip where I think the wire is going to land inside that frame. And again, if I need to snip more, I can. So I can then cut a little bit more. If you cut too much, you're a little bit stuffed. And there you can see it tucked on the inside. I didn't leave enough on that side, but it should be fine. So now we need to shape our bail and just bring that down. You can take the stone out if you want for this. Just bring it down the back and form that shape. And we can tuck those wires through the frame like we did with the last 2 wires. And just leave enough room for it to become a pendant. And then what we want to do is separate those 2 wires again, same as we did with the last ones. Wrap them around towards the back making sure they're symmetrical. And we're just going to repeat what we did with the top two, snip them and tuck them in. And just before you start cutting those two wires, just check with the stone, make sure that it's not interfering, because if you slide your stone in, those cut wires are going to raise the frame away from the stone itself. So if so, just bring them up a bit higher and then pull a bit more tension on those wires to make them tighter. So this is the back, and now we need to brace the piece in, otherwise it's just going to fall out. So with the stone in, we've got the back facing us, the very back wire, just separate it from the group, just slightly on both sides, like so. Then we're going to take our pliers roughly in the middle and just bend the wire into the piece, like so. And that will hold the back of the piece in. Now we just need to do the front. So again, we separate the front wire just slightly on both sides, so that middle wire will sit nicely holding the inner part of the stone. So we just bend those out slightly, like so. This is the bit I'm always nervous about. I really am. I dread this bit. We're just going to take our pliers on the frame at the front, about here, it's about a third of the way up, and we're just going to twist the pliers, and that is going to create this brace. Now the thing I get worried about is making sure it's symmetrical. So I have taken my pliers and twisted in. The bit I get confused about is twisting in the opposite direction on the other side. And I think I've got it in around about the same place, I'm hoping. Whoops. I think that is symmetrical. And then I'm just pushing it down just to make sure those back areas are flat with the back of the piece. And there we have it. Really nice. I'm really happy with that. As always, give the video a thumbs up, drop me a comment. If you haven't subscribed, hit that button for me. Recap again. They really are super cool, especially this one. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you for the next one. Bye for now.